Hey guys, hi, good afternoon. Like the host just mentioned, it is a splendid panel, and we were discussing what are some of the things we can expect in the years to come as far as content marketing goes, and I can't think of a better group of people to sort of debate this because across this we have exponents who've been doing this for decades, people who've been doing this at performance, people who've been doing this for brand building, and so much to learn from this group. Rather than go to each of you and sort of discuss your point of view, I thought I'll quickly present 2 or 3 different hypotheses. We'll see how much time we have and then play with that. And I'm trying to mirror much of the questions that you might have in your mind. If not, just raise your hand and ask us a question. I want to first talk about one thing that comes whenever we discuss content marketing, which is as a marketer, as a brand, as an agency, is this something that is best used as a performance tool, or is it something that's best used as a brand building tool, or are there instances where you can do both at the same time? I'm sure this is a question that's there on everybody's mind. So I'll start with that, and maybe start with you. What are your points of view on this?
This is working, right? Yeah, all right. Fair. So, look, I think if you'd asked me this question about, say, 5 years ago, I would have been inclined to say, content marketing is about brand building. At best, mid-funnel, but definitely not bottom of funnel. But as we've gone forward, I think we've realized that there is a certain route to actually driving performance using content as well, right? Now, in our case, I think what we've realized is that we've had so many extensions that we've launched in the e-commerce space now. And over time, while it doesn't really, we are a CPG brand, right? So it's not natural for consumers to suddenly look at an influencer and buy immediately. But we do see an uptick, on a lot of other measures which tell us that there is some goodness that is percolating down to bottom of funnel. It could be in terms of organic views on marketplaces. It could be about organic sales uplifts and so on and so forth. But in my mind, I think it's pretty clear now that there is a role through the funnel for content marketing. I think it's more for the brand to look back and introspect about how they want to use that particular channel, right? How do they deploy it to be able to get the best out of it? And again, going back to what's the objective that they're therefore chasing.
Thanks, Ankit. Shreyas, I thought I'll come to you next. What Ankit said is just something that he started off as a brand building and then sort of moved in. I'm a huge fan of some of the stuff that you do, which I can see, works at a very, very performance level. Talk to us a little bit more about your thoughts on this.
So, I think for specific industries, content marketing works to build brand. For some, it works to build advocacy. Maybe for newer players, it even works at an awareness level, simply creating awareness about the brand. I think for us, because we are a content company ourselves, education is eventually content. We use it across the funnel. At the top of the funnel, we probably use entertainment content to sort of make upskilling and education a pop culture thing, to sort of get it into culture. Because I think this is something that we've all heard, right? Growing up, padhai pehle khatam kar lo, finish your education. So it's the mindset that we're trying to change at the top of the funnel. Whereas once you have sort of bought into the mindset of upskilling, then you are actually looking for content that, sort of illuminates new areas of work, tells you what you can do with your career, even gets into hard skills like coding and all the other sort of programs that we offer. So we use entertainment content at the top of the funnel. We use maybe education content lower down the funnel. So it works in both cases for us. And similarly, the creators and influencers that we work with also changes. So we'll probably go with a sketch creator at the top of the funnel, but we'll go with a education content creator at the bottom.
As a platform, I'm assuming, a database decision making is second nature to you, right? Especially at the bottom of the funnel for some of the content marketing stuff. What do you use as some of the KPIs, measurement metrics?
Because it is bottom, views and sort of engagements take a step back. I think then it is website visits, how many interested people eventually dropped a lead, converted. So all of those business metrics is how we analyze.
Richa, I wanted to come to you next. As someone who represents Natural Diamonds Council, you mostly operate in the top of the funnel, if I'm right. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So I have the rare privilege of working on a brand which is the category. So there is no real delineation. My brand is Natural Diamonds. And the second thing that I wanted to highlight here is that for us, competition is not the category. We are fighting or battling a holiday, a Michelin star restaurant, a private jet, a car of a kind. So it's a mindset, like he mentioned, to some extent, but it's also just making sure that we keep our category relevant and our brand relevant. So we start at the top, and it's a lot to do with reminding people what maybe they subliminally know, or reinforcing what Bollywood has helped us build, or what is known. So a diamond, receiving a diamond on a bended knee, a guy on a bended knee, is a picture perfect scenario. And how do I make her want it or make him want it? That's a sort of so it is top of the funnel. We are using, as we go down, there are some triggers, but yeah, for us we are using it more subliminally. I would say it's not direct messaging at all. Unlike what Shreyas is doing, it's a direct conversion. For us, we are trying very hard to be approaching from all aspects and hoping they get the message.
Right, and you do it so well. Shreyas, you mentioned pop culture, and I thought I'll go slightly away from the funnel and then bring in Arjun and Sumit. Oftentimes when someone asks me, what is content marketing, and Arjun, maybe you can take this question. When someone asks me what is content marketing, I sort of reply to them saying it is a cultural intervention, right? At the end of the day, it's an extraordinarily data-driven endeavor, right? So you need to understand what a culture is, what a subculture is, and sort of go in there, right? And audio, I feel, today is at the forefront of many of these subculture discussions, right? How do you see audio sort of helping some of these brands drive home that message, help them make that intervention into subculture? Arjun, you want to take that? Sorry, yeah.
Sure, thanks. Apologies, I have a bad throat, so I'll try to speak as loud as possible. So it's great that you're thinking of content, Karthik. Actually, I mean, audio as a part of that, because obviously it's relatively new and exploding. But when I was thinking back to my days of being introduced to cable TV and the new era of television, in many ways the ads themselves are also great content, right? There are still hundreds of YouTube videos that collect ads from the 80s, 90s, etc. as content. There are people who've done a cappella versions of it, etc. What we're finding is, as brands and marketers have gone down that journey of earlier it being sort of long form or whatever it was from a print point of view, to television, to digital, to short form video, to gaming and audio, they've had to adapt the way of what content means, right? So earlier, for example, if you were a bank, you would probably think of all the things that you want to talk to people about, but now you will also think of, okay, should I be doing a podcast with experts? And then your influencers there are basically the podcasters in some way, right? If you think about people spending time and where you are present or not present. So for example, from a marketer's perspective, if everything that you're doing is visual, there are many, many moments during the day when you don't have an opportunity to be a part of a moment for a consumer. So for example, for Richa, it could be the getting ready with me moment in the morning, right? When people are listening to audio and preparing for the day. It could be drive time, it could be fitness. Now, all of these moments, as they come out on newer platforms outside of what people have always been reaching, so connected homes with smart TVs and home speakers and watch and car and gaming consoles and all of that, it's opening up newer ways which audio is leading for content marketers to think about where their content should sit. So it could be from a brand curating a playlist, like Mondelez does really well for Valentine's Day, etc. It could be about ads as content, as I said, which Snickers has done really well by sort of using some data on our platform to twist the moment in some way, right? So I think the explosion of devices, the explosion of audio as where people are predominantly spending time, and the fact that that gives you data to be a part of interesting moments or mindsets for people is really opening that up in interesting ways and going across various categories of audio for brands to get engaged.
Yeah, go for it.
So I would like to take the first question, which is about performance and content marketing as performance tool. Actually, we get a lot of briefs on the clients, and all the briefs starts from brand building, and then the narrative changes, and it comes to performance. So I would say, in today's time, any brief which is coming, there has to be a ROI angle to it, and this is true whether it's a small article, it's doing video series or anything which is related to content will have a performance angle. From B2B perspective, we get a lot of briefs, and so our solutions cut across all the funnels. So top funnel, basically it's about interviews, panels. Mid funnel is about roundtables, about downloads, and bottom funnel is about panel discussions, leads, things like that. So I would like to talk about a case study of Instagram, wherein Instagram wanted to target marketeers in India, and it was a 9-month program which they did with us using all our vehicles. It was about brand building. They wanted marketeers to sample influencer marketing and use Insta credits. So through this campaign, the end result was we reached out to 10,000 marketeers and brands. There were 100 nominations. There were 5 winners, and the brand marketeers could use the Insta credits and the influencers. But at the end of the day, it was boiled down to ROI along with brand building.
Extraordinary story.
Sorry, I'm going to, so while I understand from his perspective, it's all about ROI, at our stage where we are on our funnel, we honestly don't look at a ROI when it comes to a particular piece of content. We are in a category which is extremely niche. Luxury today in India is extremely nascent. The whole idea or the spirit of it is that we do something that hasn't been done before. So we hopefully do things that the industry will pick up and build on and reach the ROI stage. So for us, the content is more about, and not reach that stage where you can evaluate every aspect of word of mouth. We are a very, very spread, fragmented industry, but 3 lakh jeweler utke bolega wah wah, I'm not sure that I can measure it, but there is merit in it. So we do a lot. If I ever went by logic, I would never be on Spotify ever. It wouldn't make sense. So there's a lot of things that we do that are not basis in ROI, but more about what you think a consumer is looking for, and your gut says that. So while we are looking at associating with Diljit Dosanjh and seeing his hip-hop diamonds, at the same breath we have Post Malone happening on the same day. So this week our most read article is on Kardashians, as one would expect it. But in the same breath, we want to see ladies' saris and diamonds and how to dress up for Diwali. So today our Indian consumer is in a state of, a schizophrenic kind of a personality, where we are redefining a new normal. I can't afford to be very specific on an ROI for a brand like mine, because I don't have a turnover commitment like probably everybody else.
No, I can't thank you enough for bringing that POV. Ankit, you might have a different thing to say on this.
I was about to jump in. I think I'm straddling somewhere between the two of them. Okay, so fundamentally, I think while, of course, ROI is defined by whatever we're chasing, right? And while we are not, where Richa is, right? Where it's open-ended completely, I think we do understand long-term ROI per se, right? And mind measures are an integral part of what we do. So let me give you an example, right? About 7 years ago, we were launching Saffola Foods for the first time. And we realized that we really did not have taste credentials on the brand. That brand at its core was built around health, right? And we realized that if we wanted to succeed in foods, we would have to build taste as an equity credential somewhere within the brand. We looked, we did a lot of data diving, which we love to do as FMCG brands. And we realized that, online our consumers are consuming a lot of cooking videos, right? And by itself, I think that was interesting. But it got even more interesting when we went a step further and realized there's a white space around healthy cooking. right? And once we connected that back, we said, now we have a space that we can actually take the brand into without really compromising on the core health piece, which can continue on mainline advertising. And we created this asset called Fit Foodie, right? Which was essentially healthy yet tasty cooking. Now, one could argue, did it give us immediate ROI in terms of sales lifts? Maybe not. But over a period of time, as we scaled the platform, and I think at its peak, it was reaching about 1 million users every year, which might not be much from a publisher point of view, but for a brand, I think it just made all the difference, especially when we were getting into a new category. Now, for us, therefore, that sense of ROI was elevated because what we were getting was far beyond what we would have otherwise been able to manage with mainline advertising, which would have anyway risked, diluting the core proposition that the brand was built for. And yet, we were able to almost get a lift in the midterm for the brand, right? So, the point I'm trying to make is that I think ROI is important. It's critical because otherwise you will never be able to, at least for us, justify the investments over the medium or the long run. But does it have to be immediate? Does it have to be short term? Is something that we try and pull back from. We stay a little bit more cognizant of, if not averse to.
I love how you put it. It's not about ROI or no ROI. It's about short term or long term. And you will know because you wrote the book on creating associations. You own heart health the way others only sort of dream of. I want to go slightly back to the point that Arjun was making, which was on audio as a cultural intervention. I wanted to ask, the three brand representatives, Shreya, Richa, and Ankit, as marketers or as just audience listeners, how are you seeing audio as, and obviously I'm deeply invested in this topic, which is why I'm bringing it up. But how do you see audio as a cultural intervention?
See, I think it's interesting, but like Richa said, fundamentally, if one has to take a step back and look at it dispassionately from a numbers point of view, it's not at the tipping point where it can be justified just yet. But it's interesting again, right? So, and I'll again take an example from some work that we did in the East. So we have this brand called Nihar, hair oils that we run in the East of India. And I think over there we realized that culturally, I think the younger women over there, they resonated with some pop music that was gaining steam over there. And what we did is go actually platform agnostic. We tied up with the band and we created something that was cheeky, that made sense to that lady out there who we were wanting to talk to, and at the same time which hooked back to what the brand stood for. And we saw some fantastic results, right? When we looked at mind measures, at track scores, we realized that suddenly the brand was looked at as someone who's pushing the envelope in terms of being modern, in terms of being progressive, and so on and so forth. So music is fantastic. I think it has a great space that it can open up for brands. Whether it's platform forward, whether it's, I think the important part is to actually figure out where it plays within the context of the cultural piece that you're trying to go after.
So for us, the reason, like he said, music for us was more interesting because this is the space where we felt there was no conflict. Like when you're on your phone, you're also watching a television, or vice versa. When I'm watching football, I am still looking at my phone. Whereas when I have my headphones on and I'm listening to a particular song, even if it's on YouTube and not just Spotify, I'm singing along or dancing along. And we just felt that there was a captive audience there that we could use, and that was our trigger for wanting to go into music. We have very, very strong roots. So whether regional, you go to TN and Chennai, the kind of music that we love. So certain things, yes, transcend and go across, but the beauty is the love for music across is there. So everybody is humming, whether tum besure ho ya, you may have the rhythm or not, and that's the point, that we wanted to be there when they're associating. And we picked on it from an angle of romance, where we said that you all have your song and you go back to a moment which you built, and we tried to build those associations with our product. But it was my song and my favorite thing, which I'm hoping he'll make come true on a Valentine's Day, which is to have a mixtape. So, you know, a playlist which is customized for the one that you love. And it's something, again, not a direct connect with diamonds, but direct connect with love. So we are hoping that, you know, we use music in a slightly smarter way, but we are convinced on music as a, what should I say, music as a medium of, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Personalization is a huge aspect. Now, Shreyas, what are your thoughts? Are you a proponent?
So, I keep going back to what's already in culture, right? And I think audio as a storytelling format has existed since the time we all used to tell our parents, tell me a story, ek kahani sunao. Right? To sunna and just to listen to stories is quite inherent in our culture, and it's global. For upgrade, I think audio consumption works, and I have a feeling that our consumers already use it. It's just that it's on video, but probably when you're coming, driving to office or coming in a metro, you probably have it in your headphones and the voice is going on. So I think audio, like Arjun rightly put it, it lets you be present in moments where there is no media exposure per se, and that's the beauty of audio.
You know, wanted to make a slight shift since we're talking cultures and subcultures. One of the, not necessarily a culture, but more of a category of content, right, is news. Right? And news often shapes many of the narratives across different subcultures, right? So my question to you is, you know, I have many of my clients today who, for compliance reasons, cannot touch television news because it is just so toxic, right? Digital, of course, is being seen as the news platform of the future, which is also much more brand friendly, much more personalizable than anything else, right? If you have to, in a few words, talk to us about how are you seeing the future of news, especially for brands?
So, I think COVID onwards, we have seen a boom in news, and especially in the regional news space. We are seeing almost 35% CAGR per month. Per year, that's a CAGR.
Of audience growth, is it?
Yeah, audience growth. And this audience growth is coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities. They are consuming hyper-local content, and the consumption is moving from not only text but to videos, short form videos. So we did a survey internally, and we figured out who these audiences are, and it was very surprising to know the audience of regional news. So from the survey, what came out, 20% of these people are working in corporates in middle level and senior level. They are postgraduates, 25% of them are postgraduates. 32% of them are looking at buying a house in next 2 years. 20% of them want to own a car, you know, very soon. So I think this audience is there, and they are very brand loyal. They have high engagement. We have seen the regional news content does very well in terms of time spent. When we do brand activities, we see high engagement. Even on the display advertising, we see high CTR on languages. So, but I think the monies are still chasing the English news, and the premiums are given there. But I think there's a lot of scope.
Tragedy of it. Yeah,
languages.
Shreyas, Richa, Ankit, how do you guys see news? Is this something that you're excited about on digital? You can choose to not answer also.
Yeah, so look, I think taking Sumit's point, we are excited about vernacular for sure, right? And obviously all of us agree that that's the next round of growth for all of us, our brands and our businesses. So that said, I think news for us, there is a certain gap that does exist with our TG, core of who we want to reach out to and where news plays. So I'll skip that part of the question. But I think all the other stuff that Sumit spoke about in terms of high level of engagement, velocity, etc. I think vernacular for me is a huge opportunity waiting to be tapped into.
For me, again, same, very similar to what you said. News we tend to shy away from because, you know, the emotions are high during any now come elections or COVID or so we try to stay away. We try to stay in an environment where the consumer has an easy, clear mind to think romance, if not anything else. But vernacular, yeah, completely by what he said, that we are seeing a lot more engagement. I think the consumer is asking for a lot more content So excited to try out languages, if to a limited extent, but yes, try it out.
Which is very telling that you're hesitating to touch news, because for luxury, it's a very natural category otherwise, isn't it? Yeah.
To a consumer today, we are looking for family viewing sort of a thing. So, you know, where she's able to nudge him or he's able to look at her and have a sort of a moment together. And that's not a news moment. But anything volatile means we would stay away from, you know,
Yeah.
India Park cricket match also would be as volatile for me. Yeah.
So I actually am not the media person, so I can give you my perspective on it. I think for us as a category, as long as people are watching the right kind of news, where they get to know what's changing in the world in terms of technology, industries, that's good for us because they understand that all industries are subject to change and hence the need for upskilling sort of comes in. But I think I agree. There are extremely high emotions where I would not want to place my brand.
I just, again, I guess I'm not the marketing person here, but as a consumer and as somebody who's sort of interested in the world around, from a news point of view, I think a few things have shifted for me, and I can see those shifts happening, maybe not for the entire country, but for the early adopters or the mavens, as you would call it, right? One is the sort of trust deficit, which is who do I believe in terms of the news that I really want, that I care about, because there's just so much of it out there, right? There's 20 places that I could get my information from. So how am I, not only am I consuming, but at some level, I think people also need to curate the sources of news that they will actually count on. So back in the day, it was the newspaper and TV, maybe radio. Now there's, 10-page Twitter threads, there's newsletters, there's podcasters, there are sort of niche groups on Discord that'll talk about stuff, right? So I think so that is one, which is how is news evolving to fill in all the trust gaps or the niches that currently are not covered mostly. I think the second is also when we did our Culture Next report around Gen Z, we found that especially for younger audiences, their sources are no longer restricted by where they're from, right? So you could be following people from around the world. There may be a crypto expert somewhere in Eastern Europe who you want to hear about, or there could be somebody who's majorly into anime somewhere that you want to follow in terms of what's happening in those specific industries. So as boundaries continue to expand and cultural references are no longer about where I live or who I know or what I do, I think it will become increasingly challenging for brands as well to identify the right places to be, which are brand safe, trustworthy, drive their information, etc. So it's going to be a super interesting space as it evolves over time.
It's a very significant thing you mentioned, right? Like, there's no more the fourth estate. It's who they think are the experts. Sorry, you had a point.
Yeah, just to add here, we also seeing a shift in the content consumption wherein users are looking for feature-based content. So whether it's on health and fitness, whether it's on investing, it's on beauty, education. So that content is doing very well on news and it's very brand safe.
Right. Just to pick on what Arjun was talking about, which is they're looking at experts. Right. One of the things, and this is probably the third hypothesis I want to present to you. We have about 5 minutes. We'll try and keep this short. I genuinely feel we spent a big part of the previous decade obsessed with what's happening on social media, obsessed with building brand handles and assets on social media. But I genuinely feel, as we move forward, advocacy is the new social media. Right? It is not so much about building our handles and followings for that as much as it is about finding the right creators to take our message, right? Which I feel is the most important part of content marketing as we move forward. How do you see this? Do you agree with this hypothesis? What are your points of view? Should we start with you, Ankit?
Sure. So, look, I think for me, advocacy has always been more than social media handles, right? And, so contrary to popular opinion, I think it's not so much about building communities online, but just building communities, right? Are you able to get a collective of people together who believe in a certain purpose, in a certain cause, and get them to engage and propagate? I think for whatever reason. It could be for brand, it could be for purpose, it could be for something that they believe in. Now, if you're able to do that, you will have advocacy. Now, the second part of that is that how do you link it back to brands and what they're looking for, right? And, we've, again, let me quote an example here. We have a brand called Niha Shanti Amla, bottom of pyramid, your classic non-digital brand, right? It's at least 3 years ago. Now, for that brand, we said, how do we drive advocacy? It obviously can't be through the Instagrams of the world, right? Those people don't even exist over there. And we use something as simple as an IVR, right? And we said, can we actually fulfill a need gap for them? These mothers are hungry for education to teach their children. Can we actually enable them to learn English? And can we make it interactive? So we actually went a step ahead and got them to take assessments on the IVR and then push it out as referrals to people around them in the community that they reside in. And we saw a massive surge, right? Because it's something that was close to their heart. They obviously consumed the content, saw value in it. And then from there, they expanded. They literally exploded the content out to people around them. So for me, I think that's really what advocacy is, right? It's about figuring out a need space that you can tap into, connecting it back to a platform that is accessible to them, and then linking it back to what the brand wants to try through them.
And not necessarily be obsessed with following on social media. Shreyas, you're smiling, you have a point, I'm assuming.
So yeah, advocacy I think has existed for the longest time. It's just that people now have a platform to advocate or diss a brand. We all have a media channel in our hands, right? So I can tell you for us, advocacy becomes really important because if you look at education and colleges, everybody has their own review of how their college was. For some it was a great experience, for some it was not a great experience. Some people will tell you that they had fun but didn't learn anything. And some people will tell you that they learned everything but didn't have fun. And now because everybody has a voice on social media, it becomes even more important for us to put the voices that are also there, maybe not very vocal, but it becomes important for us to put those voices ahead as well. And I think, yeah, so advocacy has always existed. It's just that we all now have megaphones to speak with.
Richa, as someone who operates in the luxury space, right? It's extremely critical who's carrying your message, isn't it? So how do you see things evolve with what's going on in the worlds of Instagram and Snap and everything else? Does it change your approach?
I think that the one thing that has happened is, like he said, no borders, and he was talking from a different context, Arjun. But for us, what has happened is that the consumer has become, I wouldn't say has become more knowledgeable only, but also thinks that he or she is that much more knowledgeable. So it's very tough. It's for us, everybody thinks that this person I know or is a person next door. The influencers, at least at our level now in luxury, have become, you're jaded towards them. You don't want an influencer. Whatever an influencer says is not believable. So you're going into a micro-influencer sort of a space, and while cost is that much more, but and from an ROI perspective or trying to see the legitimacy is that much higher. So we are trying to go into much smaller circles with a higher legitimacy and advocacy through much smaller megaphones, and we do get disrupted by the WhatsApp, the big brother WhatsApp that happens, who can disrupt one narrative that can go viral without any. So that somehow transcends luxury, non-luxury across the board.
Great. Thanks so much. We have about a minute and a half. I'm just going to probably surprise you a little and ask you probably to leave the audience with one content marketing trend that you think will be of huge prominence in 2023. Probably start with you, Arjun.
Sorry, is that a trend or an example?
You can choose between the two, either an example or a trend.
Trend, I think, in the next 18 months, podcasting will become more important as a lot of YouTube creators discover, how that ecosystem is building. From an example point of view, there's been many brands that have produced music or, commissioned a song or an anthem, as it's called. I think Pepsi did something interesting when they released their track with Bacha. They also promoted it on Spotify the way a music label would promote a big track, right? But interestingly, they also printed the scannable of the track on Pepsi cans. So a user could pick up the can, scan the can with the Spotify app, and it would basically launch the track on Spotify and drive listenership. So that's one example that I really liked.
Shreyas, a trend
So-
or an example?
I think this trend has existed, but it's really going to pick up in the next couple of years, which is infotainment. People who tell you how to make your life better, whether career, your physique, your lifestyle, your investments. So infotainment as a content trend, while it has existed, I think it's really going to pick up.
I would second that. In our space, we are looking at, I would have said, I was going to say edutainment, but it's like people are looking for information, but packaged in a bite-sized, more relevant, fun way.
I think it's going to be nano and micro influencers, which will grow further.
So for me, it's, rural India is exploding, right? And aspirations of youngsters to become influencers are now matching with the platforms and their tools that they're providing for them to actually become those influencers. So I think that's really for me the big trend, right, that I'm seeing. You're going to have a whole new space that's going to explode. It's already exploding, but we're going to see it pick up steam as we go along.
Great. Lots to look forward to here. That's it from us. Thank you so much.